Let's get straight to it. This budgeting spreadsheet is divided into 4 sections or tabs, each with a distinct purpose. The first one is Settings. This is where you get started. You set your currency, the year you're tracking, and all the income, expense, and savings categories that will be used throughout the rest of the sheets. The second one is Budget Planner. This is where you set your monthly budgets for each category of income, expenses, and savings. Third, Budget Tracker. This is where you add all your actual transactions as they happen. And finally, the fourth is the Budget Dashboard. This is the heart of this spreadsheet, where you can get insights and see how you're doing against the budget you've set. Let's get started with tab 1, the settings. First off, you'll write down the current year, select your currency symbol, and optionally, write your name. The most important part here is that once you select the year, you don't change it again mid-year. If you want to start a new version next year, copy and paste the whole spreadsheet. And that's the first 3 steps done. Now, when you scroll down, you'll find a section where you can add your income sources, variable expenses, recurring expenses, and savings accounts. Start by adding your income sources. They can be something like salary, dividends, rental property, and let's say a side hustle. Just add all the categories that you need. Don't worry, if you get a new income source, you can add it later too. The same goes for all the other categories. You can always add them in the middle of the year as well. Next, move on to the variable expenses section. These are all your expenses that don't have a specific payment date and that are very unpredictable. For example, I'm adding shopping, groceries, entertainment, personal care, dining out, and home supplies. That's just my list. You can add anything you wish to track. The rule of thumb here is to make the categories as granular as they need to be, but not more. For example, if you wish, you can add haircuts to your variable expenses category if you feel that's a huge money sink for you. For me, personal care as a more general category works fine. When you're done with variable expenses, it's time to move on to recurring expenses. These are all your expenses that have a payment date and are fairly predictable. If that's done, you can proceed to the savings accounts section. Write down any slush funds, sinking funds, brokerage accounts, and other savings accounts that you have. The important thing to remember here is that these funds do not have to be actual bank accounts. This means you could use this section to track your savings goals as well. For example, you can easily have the actual money for travel fund and new car fund in one bank account. It's just that in this spreadsheet, you track them separately. Also, as you can see, you can add a starting amount to each account. This is great if you already have some savings for that account and you want to roll them over. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's move on to the budget planner. This is where you set your actual budgets for each month. As you can see, you can control everything just from one tab, which is super convenient. All the categories have been pre-filled based on your inputs in the Settings tab. If you ever need to add or change anything, then that's where you can do it. Now, some basic things you should know about this sheet. First, it's a zero-based budget. This is just a fancy way of saying that your goal is to allocate all of your incoming money. Maybe a better way to say it would be that you need to find a purpose for all your income. It either goes to cover expenses, or it goes towards savings. Hopefully, more toward the latter. These savings can be in your brokerage account, 401k, sinking, or slush funds. Anything you want, really. As I fill out the budget, you can see how the visuals come to life. There's a left to allocate section at the very top. It does exactly what it says it does. It shows how much of your income you have to allocate each month. And it also shows you when you go over budget. If it shows 0 in green, you've allocated all of your income. If it gets red, it means you're over budget. Below left to allocate, you can see a bar chart that gives you a visual overview of your budget and how your expenses and savings compare to your income. On the right, you can see donut charts that show you a breakdown of each transaction type. It's a great way to visually see which your largest budget items are. Next, you can move on to the budget tracker. That's where you record all of your transactions as they happen. Here you can see the table where you add all of your transactions. All the white fields are meant for your inputs. Anything with color or gray is generated automatically. Next to the transaction table on the right, you can see the overview section that displays general data about your entries. You don't need to touch anything here. Below that is an important section, the Upcoming Payments section. This displays all the upcoming recurring payments you previously set in the Settings tab. This right here helps you never forget about any of your subscriptions ever again. You can pick between the next 30, 60, and 90 days from the dropdown. Okay, now let's fill out a quick example of some transactions so you can see the sheet in action. Let's say I start off with a salary of $2,500. Note that if you start out with expenses instead, you can draw on your savings funds. I'll show you how in a bit. But for now, let's say I have a bunch of bills that need paying. Groceries, shopping, utilities, etc. As you can see from the balance column, each time I add a new expense, my balance gets smaller and smaller. Finally, after I pay my mortgage, things are getting pretty critical, and I have more bills to pay. What do I do? In this example, I can draw on my savings. I created this expenses splash fund earlier. I'm not sure why I called it that. Maybe because it makes paying bills more fun and less of a dread? But anyways, what it is a simple slush fund. Let's roll with that. The way I can draw on my savings fund is simple. I just add the amount I want to draw as a negative number. I'll add minus $800, which will add exactly $800 to my balance. That'll get me through a couple of big ticket expenses I have coming up. After that, fortunately, I have some more income coming in. This allows me to add back $1,200 in the expenses splash fund. This allows me to end the period with an extra $400 more in that fund, even though I drew on it earlier. Also, I'll mention just in case, when I allocate to any of my savings funds, my balance still goes down. That's because we've made the money unavailable for other purposes. If I want to make it available again, I'll just draw on the fund. The actual amount in those funds is still being tracked though. And now, the final tab, the Budget Dashboard. Here is where all the data comes together. At the very top, you can pick any period you'd like to take a look at. Right now, January is empty because I haven't added any transactions in that month. But as soon as I switch to October, the chart updates the info. The dashboard is divided into 4 main sections: income, variable expenses, recurring expenses, and savings. At the very bottom, you can actually see the savings tracker section that reflects your savings account balances. One more thing about the period selection. You can choose between any month, the total year, the current month, or a custom period. When you choose a custom period, 2 fields will appear, one with the start date and the other with the end date. Just double-click on each of them to add any dates you wish. Each section has a donut chart. This gives you a breakdown of your categories. When you click on it once and move your mouse over, you can see a more detailed view of each part. Next to the donut chart, you can see your total budget for the period and total actual, which reflects your actual cash flows you've tracked in the Budget Tracker tab. The last widget displays how much you are over or under your budget. Being over budget is great for the income and savings sections, but it's obviously not that great for the variable and recurring expenses section. Below the widgets and donut chart is a table that displays how your real cash flows compare to your budget. The tracked column displays the sum of the transactions you have actually recorded for the selected period. Right next to it is the budget column, which shows the period's budget. Then comes the percent completed column that displays what percentage of your budget you've completed. If you go over 100%, then you can see the amount in the final excess column. Also, when that happens, the whole row will change color, so it's easier to catch. And finally, the very last section is called the budget summary. This will give you an overview of your period income, total expenses, savings, and savings rate. Note that the savings here are calculated as income minus expenses. So it considers as savings all the money that is not spent, even the money you've not specifically allocated to any of the savings funds. If the savings amount here differs from the amount in the savings accounts section, then it just means you have some money that you have not allocated yet. And that's pretty much it. Give the tracker a go and you'll see it's super easy to use. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.